Emils, thanks a lot for being with us. We had a few developments on the methane regulation side here in the EU. I was wondering if you can give us an update, an overview of what's happened so far and where we're headed next.
Sure. So as you may know, that early this week, the EU member states green-lighted the EU Methane Regulation, the first of its kind targeting methane emissions in energy sector. In terms of what's coming up next, we're looking into moving in the secondary phase of the legislative process. So the development of secondary legislation, which will be developed by European Commission. We're looking at least 8 pieces of different legislation, so implementing a delegated act. And in terms of timeline, what we're seeing is that there are some implementing acts that will be developed already within the next 12 months. And there are also some implementing acts and delegated acts which will be developed within 3 or 4 years.
And are there any outstanding issues? So from an operator perspective, is there any issues left to tackle during this period of secondary legislation that we've just entered?
From an operator point of view, there are 3 challenges when it comes to this regulation. The first is the obligation to quantify methane emissions from subsea components and subsea bed components in the scope of LDAR, as well as the Article 18, which targets wells. There is no commercially available technology that can do the quantification work today. The second one is that there is quite strict criteria for the use of advanced detection technologies, the source-specific criteria, and also for these technologies to meet the dedicated repair threshold to 17 grams an hour, for example. Technologies like drones cannot meet such low thresholds. Drones are used by operators, especially in offshore operations where it's really difficult to reach some of the components. There's something that needs to be changed in the secondary legislation when it comes to this criteria. And then finally, the third point I would like to mention is that there is quite strict timelines associated with implementation of venting and flaring provisions. We're talking about 18 months for operators to basically change their way of operating in order to avoid venting and flaring. And there are certain exceptions, but there is also obligation to have flare stacks with combustion efficiency of 99%, which has to be ensured within 18 months, which essentially means that operators have to change all their flare stacks within 18-month time to ensure this destruction removal efficiency of the flare stack.
Looking at imports more specifically, imports of LNG in particular, is there any outstanding issue there that importers and therefore exporters, suppliers should watch out for?
Perhaps 3 points or 3 challenges on this aspect. The first is there is little clarity about the timelines when it comes to development of the optional clauses that could help importers with attaining information that's required, as well as the reporting templates, which have to be developed by the Commission. The second challenge really is the complexity of the natural gas value chain, especially LNG that's traded on the spot market. And then the third challenge or uncertainty is when and how European Commission will ensure MRE equivalency with the third countries like US or Norway.
So looking ahead, what are you hoping for in this secondary legislation phase?
So certainly there are still several issues that have to be addressed by the secondary legislation. So we're hoping that together with industry and other stakeholders, including European Commission, we can address these issues whilst ensuring that the regulation delivers on its ambition and it truly delivers on its objective of reducing methane emissions, but also at the same time ensures that operators can actually implement the regulation and also that it doesn't jeopardize the security of supply in Europe because some of the provisions don't allow for a certain degree of flexibility.